Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm doing something I've never done before, and I'm doing a style breakdown. In today's video, we're talking about 5 popular interior design styles, and I'm gonna tell you what they actually mean. People are always throwing around these terms: modern organic, Wabi Sabi, modern, contemporary, but what do they mean? We have no idea, but I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know in today's video, so let's get right into it. The first interior design style I wanna talk about today is modern design. And before we really jump into that, I wanna say that modern design might not actually be the right term for this. So modern is the word we see in our books, in our stores. When we look at CB2, we look at RH Modern, we see the word modern and we think modern, but actually when it comes to interior design, modern refers to a design style that was really popular in the mid-20th century. But when we think about modern design, we're actually more so thinking about contemporary interior design. And contemporary interior design is classified as the design style that is popular right now, the design style that is popular in this day and age. So the black, the white, all the things that we're going to talk about that really encompass modern design, that's kind of what we're thinking about. But because modern is the word that is really popular, that is the term we're going to use to kind of encompass the segment of today's video. So what is modern design? Well, modern design really sticks to those neutral colors. Your black, your white, your gray. That's kind of where we live. We have the more cool tones. That's what we have in the modern design. Everything is very crisp. Everything is very clean. Everything has a place. When you look at modern spaces, you're not like, oh, why is that there? You know exactly why it's there and you know not to move it. And while modern spaces do have a ton of clean lines, we also value the sculptural. So in modern spaces, you will see a lot of actual sculptures, right? We use them as art pieces. We find sculptural bowls. We find things that have really interesting shapes and try to add them into our space to accessorize. And again, while we do have the clean lines in our furniture, you'll see a lot of modular furniture, rectangular furniture. Sometimes we do like to add curvature via those chairs, but you will find a lot of curvature again in those decorative accents and in that artwork. So while the modern space does have those more muted colors, you are likely to see some color in the artwork. A lot of people do just strictly do black and white artwork, but in a modern space, you also might see something that's very vibrant, and that is kind of the star of the show, and everything else is very muted. In contemporary design, you will also see a ton of symmetry. It's something that's very valued because, again, it just looks really nice and clean. But in contemporary design, we also really value texture, and I keep saying we because that is actually how I really classify my design style. You guys ask me this all the time. I am definitely a contemporary or modern interior design lover. That's what I live for. It just keeps me kind of sane in my space. The modern design lover also does love texture. So while the space might look a little bit boring because we're only dealing with a few colors, we do like to really pile on the texture, whether that be in the rugs, our pillows, our throw blankets. We add visual interest via texture and material, and not as much through those colors. If you were building a modern space from scratch, you might see a lot of concrete, a lot of steel, a lot of metal. Those really industrial elements really shine in contemporary and modern design. We kind of make use of those architectural details that kind of work with our style and make it really nice and grungy. You'd probably notice that in every modern space you've seen, someone really does tend to choose a metallic to kind of run with. In my space, I've chosen gold, but sometimes people choose silver or pewter or anything like that. We kind of let that shine because it literally does shine. In contemporary modern design, you also see a lot of ambient lighting because it's very moody. Sometimes you'll even see dark wall colors. So it's not always all white, but you do see white and black. So maybe someone will have black walls or dark gray walls. It can be very dark. So to kind of counteract that, there's a ton of mood lighting, which is why you see the task lights and the chandeliers and the really sculptural, interesting floor lamps. So contemporary design is definitely my favorite design style. I will say that it is one of the least livable design styles. So if you accrue a lot of things, right, if you need a lot of storage, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is the design style for you. If you like things to be a little bit more exciting, I wouldn't say that it's a design style for you. I think it works really best for art lovers. I really love art, and my space is kind of a blank canvas, and my art really accessorizes the space, and it kind of changes the tone of the space altogether. There's so many different ways that you can bring a contemporary space to life, but I will say that it tends to be a lot more subtle than other design styles. The next interior design style that we need to chat about is modern organic. It's also called organic modern, but I just have a bias for the modern organic. I like the way that that sounds better. So modern organic is truly a blend between the modern and then the earthy elements of the bohemian design style. And bohemian design is not a design style that we're really going to delve into today, just because I know you guys and a lot of you are just not bohemian. But the modern organic design style, it still has those clean lines. It still has those neutral colors that you saw in that contemporary and modern design, but it has a little bit more warmth to it. So while the contemporary spaces are a little bit more cool, right? You don't have those warm undertones. You more so have those blue and those gray undertones. In this modern organic space, you're going to see a lot of beige, a lot of yellow undertone in those paint colors. And it's going to be very earthy. It's going to be reminiscent of being outside on a summer day, which is really, really beautiful. And modern organic design has become really, really popular as of late. It's very warm. You have those really earthy textures. So that's why we have the linen. We have the wrinkles in the linen. We have a lot of reclaimed wood in those spaces, and we have a lot of organic shapes. So think about those vases that kind of look like a body. They look like maybe some rippling water. That's what you're seeing in those modern organic spaces. Of course, since the space is modern organic and the word organic is literally in the title, you also have a lot of plants. And it's not an overwhelming number of plants, kind of like you see in bohemian design. It's more about making your space kind of feel like a transition from the inside to the outside really seamlessly. So in a lot of designs, they'll have like a tree in like the middle of the house, but you will have the trees, maybe an olive tree, maybe a fiddle leafy, but you will have a real greenery, not faux greenery, and you'll have larger pieces, larger statement pieces instead of those little tchotchkes, right? Because in the modern organic design, we still do value that minimalism that we do see in that modern design, right? We still have that word modern in there. So we still have the minimalism. So we're using those big plants to kind of make a huge impact instead of using really, really small ones. If you're thinking about kind of incorporating the modern organic design in your home, I'd probably say think about plastering your walls. That's something that has become really, really popular. If you can't plaster your walls, you can lime wash your walls. You can also do a ton of layering. So they layer a ton of textures. So the linen, the jute, the twine, layering all of those textures, having those organic dyed, organic made fibers in your home adds a lot of that modern organic element. Think about putting down a jute rug or something like that to bring, again, the outside indoors. And while the modern organic design really does rely upon those warm colors, it does still have some of those black elements there. You might see a black picture frame or a black coffee table, but in those instances, they're going to be black wood. It's not going to be black vinyl or metal. You're not going to see as much metal in this design style. It's really, again, going to be about having wood and just normal fabric, really to make the space feel really nice and cozy and warm. A modern organic space is a space that you really, really want to hang out with, and that's where you want to sit back, relax, and take a nap. The next interior design style that I want to talk about is transitional design. So transitional design was really, really popular in 2021 and 2020, which is why I'm talking about it now. I don't know if it's going to be popular in 2022, but I feel like it is an evergreen design style, which is why we really, really need to talk about it. So the transitional design style is a blend between the modern traditional. You can also refer to transitional as modern traditional, and they kind of mean two different things, but let's just jump right into it. I think of modern traditional design or transitional design is traditional design. So the really, really thought out floor plans, everything is really nice and rigid and very well curated. I think of that, but instead of those deep tones and that deep walnut and that red and that orange and the colors that you're kind of used to seeing in your childhood, instead of those colors, we're doing the same thing, but with lighter colors, using those neutrals, but not necessarily the warm neutrals, just lighter colors. So we're having the white, we have the gray, but we also have the blues, the greens, the purples. I like to think of transitional design as traditional design, but with better colors, right? So there's nothing wrong with traditional design. Of course, you've seen what that looks like. We have the deep walnuts, the reds, the oranges, but it's a little bit overbearing, right? So transitional is kind of taking the same way that they've organized the homes, right? We still have the love seats, we still have the really rigid floor plan, but we have lighter colors, right? We're using white, we're using gray, we're using beige, blue, and green. We're using more earth tones. It's a little bit more inviting, but still very beautifully laid out. When I think about transitional design, I think, again, just the traditional, but updated. So in these spaces, it's still going to be very minimal. Everything is going to have a place and a place it needs to be. Even in the styling, everything looks like it's put in the perfect place and you don't really want to move it. When you think about traditional design, there is not an overwhelming amount of anything. If you are going to see some overstyling, it will be in those curio cabinets, in those display cabinets, in those china cabinets, but otherwise the space is really laid out in a way that is super practical. You're going to see those trays, you're going to see a few natural elements, right? When you think about the transitional design, it's also bringing in some of those coastal elements. So you might see some of that jute, you might see even a few seashells, maybe a few waves or something like that, but it's very, very nice and clean. It kind of gives me classy, sophisticated hotel vibes. So I'm not talking about like just like the Hilton, though I love the Hilton. I'm a Hilton Honors member. I'm not talking about the Hilton, but I'm talking about maybe like an updated Bellagio, right? Something really, really nice and crisp and clean. Everything in a place, but it's also very, very well curated. This is the design style that I think works for most people long term, and I think it's a design style that's really, really easy to shop for. You can still have those deeper wooden tones that you've already had. You don't have to go out and buy a whole new set of things, but it is one that you can find things at your local Ross, your Marshalls, but you can also go to Ethan Allen and pick up things. You can find items that fit into this transitional design style regardless of your budget. So when you think about transitional, you might also be thinking Studio McGee, and I honestly would classify Studio McGee as transitional or modern traditional, right? We still have the curio cabinets, we still have the really traditional chandeliers, but we do have some more modern shapes and elements, right? We do have little pops of black there, we have the clean lines, we have some sculptural vases, right? We have a little bit of modernism without it being overbearing. It's traditional with a sprinkle of modern and not the other way around. The next design style I want to chat about is maximalism. So maximalism is really, really making a comeback in 2022. And a lot of people have some conflicting views on it. It is definitely a controversial topic. I think that maximalism gets a really bad rap, so does minimalism, but let's just kind of talk about maximalism as a whole. So the very common misconception about maximalism is that you're a hoarder, right? And that is not it. Maximalist spaces, I would argue, are even better curated than minimal spaces, right? Because you're working with so much more to kind of make it look really nice and pristine. So when you're dealing with a maximalist space, you're going to have a lot of texture, a lot of color, a lot of pattern, and a lot of things, right? So maximalist spaces, though, if you really look at them, they aren't necessarily overrun with furniture. They actually tend to have the exact same number of seating options as you'd have in a contemporary space, in a transitional space, actually probably less than in a transitional space. They may just be atypical options. Instead of having that really basic wooden chair with cream upholstery as your accent chair, you might have a chair that's actually in the shape of a hand, right? You have the exact same number of seating options, they just kind of look different. Maximalist spaces also really take advantage of every part of a room. So in a lot of design styles, the design kind of stops at eye level, right? You have a painting up on the wall and that's it. When you're dealing with maximalist design, you are thinking about those floors, what you put on top of those floors, your seating options, what's going on your baseboards, what's going on your walls, what's going on your ceilings, right? In maximalist spaces, you tend to have wallpaper, really interesting light fixtures, interesting flooring. Maybe you'll have different tiles. Maybe you'll have tons of rugs layered on there, right? There is a lot more going on and there's texture everywhere. I will say maximalist spaces are really, really easy to kind of get overwhelmed in. I will probably say that maximalist spaces are the spaces that I enjoy looking at the most, but I do find overwhelming to live in. But not everyone feels that way, right? And maximalism is actually a design style that can be really, really successful. Maximalism is also a really, really popular design style because it kind of shows what you've accrued throughout your lifestyle. So again, maximalism kind of gets a bad rap. You're like, oh, that person's a hoarder, but it's actually kind of the opposite, right? This person is sophisticated. They've traveled, they've acquired things, and they're kind of putting them all on display. So that's actually a different perspective to have on maximalism. But it does require a lot of intention because there's a very fine line between looking kind of like you're on the show with hoarders and having things that are really, really laid out beautifully. If you're trying to accomplish a maximalist space, I wouldn't say buy everything and kind of put it up. There's this philosophy that if you buy everything that you love and you put it together, it's going to look fantastic. From a design perspective, that just isn't true. You still have to think about the rule of thirds, the rule of threes. You have to think about scale and occupying a space and overstyling and all of the basic design fundamentals. You still have to think about them with maximalist design. You can bend the rules a little bit. Every rule is meant to be broken, but we still have to kind of stay within those parameters. I think that one of the ways to make maximalism very, very successful is to also kind of find or cultivate a love of art, right? Because I think art really sets really good maximalist spaces apart from kind of bad maximalist spaces, because I think art really brings your design upwards. I think maximalist spaces where there isn't as much artwork, that can be kind of lacking for me. Be open to artwork, be open to non-traditional forms of artwork. If you're thinking about kind of diving into the world of maximalism, I encourage you to kind of look into the world of peel and stick items, because it's a great way to figure out if maximalism is for you. Get those peel and stick wallpapers from the store, get peel and stick wallpaper, get peel and stick floor tiles, get peel and stick everything and give it a try. See if you like those colors, make those gallery walls, go to your local thrift stores and get some old frames, or go to your local store and get some frames, frame your artwork, frame your pictures, frame your writing, put it all up on the wall and see if you kind of like the vibe. If you're struggling to really understand what maximalism is, I like to think of it as bohemian without all of the earth tones, right? So bohemian style, there's a lot going on. It's very cozy. There's a lot of things, right? You have a lot of plants, you have a lot of color, you have a lot of texture, and it's the same thing, but instead of just having those neutrals, those earth tones, you're doing it with blue, green, red, purple, all of the colors of the rainbow, and you're doing it with all of the confidence in the world. Last but certainly not least, I want to talk about the Wabi Sabi interior design style. So Wabi Sabi became really popular in 2020 because we went into the pandemic and a lot of us were spending more time at home. So Wabi Sabi actually is derived from Japan, and it is the kind of philosophy of really slow, imperfect living. It's all about finding the beauty in the imperfections, and it's a really, really nice message. And I love Wabi Sabi for that reason. So when you think about Wabi Sabi style, you think about really, again, very modern organic spaces. It's very similar in that regard. You see a lot of elements of nature. So you see the plants, you see those natural pieces of wood and things like that. What you will notice in those natural elements is that those natural elements are imperfect, right? And we're finding the beauty in that. So when you're curating a Wabi Sabi space, you might have a bowl that has maybe a gash in it or a chip in it, or, you know, it looks a kind of a little bit different. It's not the perfectly curated dough bowl you might find at Pottery Barn. It tells a story, and we're kind of finding a beauty in that difference, in that imperfection. Wabi Sabi spaces are really cozy and really minimal. They're not over cluttered with things, right? There is some layering and some texture, but not an overbearing amount, maybe not as much as you might see in that modern organic design. Wabi Sabi designs also have a lot of lower profile furniture. So that's where you're going to see your platform beds and your lower sofas and your lower chairs and things like that. It's not super high profile. You're not going to find the things with the very, very high backs. And one of my favorite elements of Wabi Sabi design is the fact that it is very asymmetrical, right? So you're not finding those perfect things that match one another on either side, kind of like you see in contemporary design, like you see here in my home. You'll have something different on one side and different on the other. It's very asymmetrical. Sometimes we won't even fill in the other side with anything. We'll kind of leave it blank and let one, side of a room or one vase or one something kind of carry the weight in a space. Whereas in other designs, you really need to balance things out. So again, it's really continuing on that theme of the imperfect. I think Wabi Sabi is one of the design styles that people are most excited for, but I think it is one of the more difficult ones to kind of master, because I think it again has to do with the lifestyle and kind of taking your time to find the imperfect things and to kind of connect with nature. It's not one of the design styles that you kind of just like pop out to Home Goods and you're able to like establish in 1 second, right? It is all about cultivating things and kind of taking your time and living in a space and learning that space to really, really create a home. Okay, you guys, that's it for today's video. That was a style breakdown on 5 of the most popular interior design styles of 2022. I hope that you are walking away from today's video with a better understanding of your design style or the design styles that you're interested in, so that you can make a really, really good decision for your home. You should also be able to walk away from today's video knowing what to search on Pinterest or what to search for online to really, really craft the space that's going to be perfect for you and your family. If you like today's video, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check me out on Instagram. And until next time, have a beautiful day.